I opened the door and froze for half a second. It was Haley standing there, sure, but not quite the Haley I knew, not the one I woke up next to, not the girl who wore my old sweatshirts and laughed with her eyes closed. This version of her was different. Carefully put together. Too perfect. She wore a deep red dress, tight, smooth, silky. It hugged her like a secret, stopping mid-thigh and giving just enough without giving everything. Her makeup was bolder than usual, too sharper around the eyes, lips painted like she wanted to be remembered. Her hair looked like it had just been styled at some high-end salon, soft curls pinned back, glossy in a way it never was when we were just home together. And the perfume. God, the perfume. Expensive floral, not too sweet. Not something I recognized. She smiled at me like everything was normal. "Hey, babe," she said, brushing past me into the apartment like she hadn't just knocked the wind out of me. "I've only got about an hour before I head out. Thought we could have dinner." I said nothing at first, just followed her with my eyes as she stepped into the kitchen, setting down her bag like this was any other Tuesday night. She looked back when I didn't speak, her smile faltering just a bit. Just a flicker. A crack. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head. "Yeah," I said finally. "Just surprised. You look different." She laughed, but it was airy, like a laugh she practiced in the mirror. "Well, it's a reunion. I haven't seen some of these people in years. Wanted to make a good impression." I nodded, walking slowly to the counter while she pulled a wine bottle from the fridge. She poured us both glasses, then took a sip of hers without sitting down. Just stood there in that red dress, looking like she belonged on some magazine cover, not in my tiny kitchen. I wanted to say something real. I wanted to ask why she suddenly cared this much about a college reunion. I wanted to ask who would be there, what bar they were going to after, if she was meeting someone. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because if I opened that door, I knew I wouldn't like what I found. So I smiled instead. Kept it cool. And we sat down for dinner. I'd cooked. Just something quick, pasta with grilled chicken, some garlic bread. Her favorite, or at least it used to be. She picked at it, barely eating. I noticed. She tried to hide it, asked questions about my day, brought up this new show she wanted us to watch, like things hadn't shifted, like we weren't now speaking through glass. Halfway through, she slid the conversation toward the night ahead. "Some of us are talking about heading out after," she said casually, wiping her mouth with a napkin. "Bar hopping. Nothing crazy, but I might be late getting back." She said it too smoothly. Like she'd practiced those exact words in the mirror that morning. I raised my eyebrows, pretending to think. "That sounds fun. Who's going?" She hesitated just a second too long. "Oh, just some old friends from campus. I don't even know who all's confirmed yet. I'll probably just go with the flow." Another sip of wine. Another flash of her eyes checking my face for a reaction. I gave her none. But I felt something stir inside me then, something cold and quiet. Like the first chill before a storm. Not rage. Not panic. Just a weight settling in my chest, familiar in a way I didn't like. She was hiding something. I didn't need to be told. I didn't need proof. I could feel it. The distance. The way she held her phone lately, screen always tilted away. The way she started spending more nights at her place instead of ours. The way she brushed off wedding planning like it was some optional project. It wasn't one thing. It was everything all at once. Drip by drip, 1,000 tiny cuts I'd convinced myself not to notice. Now I was noticing. After dinner, she checked her phone and slipped it into her purse quickly, too quickly. "I should probably head out," she said, standing up and smoothing her dress like she was worried about wrinkles. She grabbed her coat but didn't put it on. Just draped it over her arm. I walked her to the door. She turned and gave me a soft smile, one she might have given me 2 years ago before a date. She leaned in, kissed my cheek lightly, and said, "Don't wait up, okay?" I nodded. She looked at me a second longer, really looked. Like she was trying to read something behind my eyes. Maybe she sensed the shift. Maybe she didn't. Then she turned and left. I stood at the door for a full minute after she was gone. Just stared at the hallway like it could give me answers. My chest felt tight, but I didn't move. I just kept hearing the echo of her heels tapping down the stairs. Like a clock ticking. The red dress burned in my memory. That smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The careful wording of "might be back late." Everything about tonight had been choreographed. I walked back to the kitchen. Her wine glass still had lipstick on the rim. I stared at it, then picked it up and rinsed it in the sink without thinking. Something was wrong. I wasn't sure what yet, but I knew the look in her eyes. The hesitation in her voice. I'd seen it in friends before they confessed something they'd buried. I'd heard it in coworkers caught doing things they shouldn't have. And now I was seeing it in the woman I was supposed to marry. I grabbed my phone, sat down on the couch, and opened up a blank note. I didn't even know what I was writing. Just thoughts. Questions. Moments that didn't make sense. Times she'd canceled dinner. The new clothes. The weekend in Chicago. The sudden interest in going out alone. There were too many pieces. Too many things I hadn't questioned because I trusted her. Because I believed in us. But that dress, that night, that silence between us, something about it all felt like a chapter was ending. Like the ground had started shifting beneath my feet and I hadn't noticed until it was too late. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was spiraling. Maybe I'd wake up tomorrow and she'd text me selfies with old college friends and tell me she missed me. Maybe this was all just in my head. But maybe it wasn't. And if it wasn't, I had no idea what was about to happen next. After the door clicked shut behind her, the silence in the apartment settled over me like fog. I stood in the same spot for a while, arms crossed, mind buzzing with 1,000 questions I didn't want to ask but couldn't stop from forming. Something about tonight scratched at the back of my brain like an itch I couldn't reach. Haley had looked incredible, undeniably beautiful, but not for me. That thought alone was enough to tie my stomach in knots. It wasn't just how she looked. It was how calculated it all felt. The way she smiled too precisely. The way her story about a few friends felt pre-packed and ready to go. The way she avoided telling me any names. I paced the living room slowly. Every footstep echoed too loudly like I wasn't just alone but deserted. I picked up her wine glass again and stared at the rim. Lipstick smudged, still fresh. Still her. But somehow not. I sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing my hands together and staring into nothing. My thoughts, for the first time in months, weren't trying to make sense of our future, they were trying to make sense of our past. Something in me finally snapped into gear. I opened my phone and started scrolling through my messages with her, not looking for anything in particular, just looking. Trying to feel whether the way she'd started texting me lately was different. Shorter replies. More emojis instead of words. Less, I love you, more, teat while. It felt small until it didn't. Then I opened the calendar app. She used to share everything with me, dinners, work events, even spin classes. But lately there were blank stretches. Long ones. Her routines had shifted. Nights she used to spend with me were now too busy or she'd say she was exhausted. But then I'd check her Instagram and find pictures posted from trendy spots downtown, only her, no tags, no friends in the frame. The more I let myself follow the thread, the more tangled it got. I remembered back in March she had this work event in Chicago. It was out of the blue. She mentioned it on a Monday, flew out that Friday. I'd asked who from her company was going and she brushed me off. Said it was mostly networking and you wouldn't know them. Her company isn't even national. They handle regional ad campaigns. A trip to Chicago didn't fit. But at the time I didn't question it. I trusted her. Yeah? I was starting to feel like a fool for not digging deeper. And then there was the coat. A month ago she showed up at my place late on a Friday. She knocked once, then just stepped inside, smiling like it was a surprise visit. She was wearing this long beige coat, tied at the waist. She kissed me before I could say anything. When she took it off, I realized that was all she had on underneath. Nothing else. At the time, I thought it was spontaneous. S**XY. But now, it didn't feel like a flirty surprise, it felt like a distraction. A deflection. Something she planned not to excite me, but to shut me up. She wanted me looking at her body, not asking questions. I thought I was reading too much into things, but when I stacked all the moments side by side, they formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. The hair appointments that didn't line up with her usual schedule. The perfume that just showed up in her bathroom one day. The lingerie I found a receipt for in a shopping bag she'd tucked under her bed. She said it was just for fun, but I'd never seen it. The puzzle wasn't complete, but enough of the edges were visible now. Enough to know the picture was nothing like what I thought it was. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, phone gripped in my hand, waiting for her to text me, call me, anything. She didn't. No photos from the reunion. No updates. Just silence. At one point, around 2 a.m., I opened my search history and typed in, how to know if your partner is cheating. The answers weren't helpful. They were obvious, and that's what made them worse. She's suddenly protective of her phone. Check. She's emotionally distant. Check. She avoids int asterisk Macy or overcompensates with excessive affection. Check and check. I hated how cliché it all sounded. Like I was living inside someone else's story. Some tired soap opera. But when it's happening to you, nothing feels scripted. It feels like your lungs don't work right. Like every conversation you ever had with that person might have been laced with half-truths. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I wasn't sick, not physically. But there was no way I was putting on a fake smile and small-talking with my coworkers while my head was spinning. Around noon, I went to Haley's apartment. I had a key. She'd given it to me months ago when we first started talking about moving in together. At the time, it felt like a step forward. Now, holding it in my hand felt like holding a lie. I hesitated at her door. My heart pounded as I slid the key into the lock and opened it. Everything was clean, tidy, nothing obviously out of place. But I wasn't looking for mess. I was looking for shadows, for things she thought I'd never notice. Her laundry basket had exactly 2 dresses in it. One was the red one from the night before. The other was a black halter dress I'd never seen her wear around me. No tags, like it wasn't new. Just secret. In her bathroom, I spotted a new toothbrush. Not hers. A man's. Black handle. Worn bristles. Tucked behind her makeup kit like maybe she hoped I wouldn't notice. In her closet, a second leather jacket. Larger than hers. Still faintly smelling of cologne. Definitely not mine. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to be the guy digging through drawers. But when trust breaks, it doesn't whisper, it snaps. I found a shoebox under her bed. Old photos, cards, ticket stubs. And a small, sleek hotel room key envelope. No hotel branding. Just a room number. 914. No dates. No names. Just a symbol. A clue. I put the box back exactly as I'd found it, then sat on her couch, staring out the window. Everything felt wrong. The air in her apartment, the quiet hum of her fridge, the framed photo of us on the mantel. I was smiling in it. She looked like she was too. But now I wasn't so sure. I left before she came home. I didn't take anything, didn't move anything out of place. But something in me had moved. The version of Haley I thought I knew, the woman I planned to build a life with, was starting to fade pixel by pixel. And what was left in her place was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who kept secrets and wore red dresses for reunions I wasn't invited to. I didn't know what I'd do next. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I didn't want accusations. I wanted clarity. I needed undeniable truth. And deep down, I already knew it was coming. I could feel it. It was just a matter of time. 2 days after the reunion, Haley came back into my apartment like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't disappeared into the night wearing a dress that now lived rent-free in my brain. She knocked once, then used her key. Her tone was upbeat, her energy light, as if she were trying to skip past whatever had happened. She carried a box from that bakery I liked across town, the one that only opened 3 days a week. Inside was my favorite, dark chocolate tart with sea salt. "Thought I'd surprise you," she said, setting the box down and kissing me quickly. "You've been working so hard lately." She was wearing one of my hoodies, hair tied up like she just rolled out of bed, face bare. She looked familiar again, comfortable, like the version of her I fell in love with. But something in her eyes was still different, like she was trying a little too hard to be easygoing. "I missed you," she added, looping her arms around my neck. "Friday night was so crazy. I didn't get home until almost 3. You should have seen how wild people got. Total flashback to freshman year." I nodded slowly, letting her words pass through me. My hands rested at her waist, but they didn't pull her closer. They just stayed there, still, like I was watching someone try to cover a crack in the wall with duct tape. We sat on the couch and watched an episode of some show we used to love. She laughed a little too loudly at the jokes. She kept touching me. My knee, my hand, my shoulder. Like she was reminding herself it was still okay to. I played along, but I wasn't present. My mind kept drifting to that hotel keycard. The toothbrush. The cologne. The dress. After a while, she got up to shower. She peeled off the hoodie and disappeared down the hall, leaving her phone on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice. But tonight, something compelled me. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe I was just tired of doubting myself. Her screen lit up with a notification. New message, Brandon speech balloon. I stared at it. That name meant nothing to me. I shouldn't have. I know that. I shouldn't have picked it up, shouldn't have tapped into her private life. But she'd already made the decision for both of us. Privacy was earned. Trust was earned. And I wasn't feeling either anymore. I opened the message thread. Still can't believe last weekend. You in that dress? Unreal. When's round 2? Winking face. Hotels better on Thursdays, less traffic. I froze. There were pictures too. Taken in dim lighting. A hotel room, champagne flutes. One *T of her standing in front of a mirror, still wearing the red dress from that night, holding her phone and smiling like she was 18 again. Another of him lying shirtless on the bed, her legs draped over his. I scrolled further, my thumb trembling. The thread went back weeks. Maybe months. Conversations about plans. About how they had to keep it casual until she figured things out. Jokes about me. He still thinks I went to Chicago for work. He's sweet but so blind. You're the only part of my life that feels real. One message in particular burned itself into my skull. Can't wait for the day I don't have to sneak out of his bed just to end up in yours. I don't remember setting the phone down. I don't remember standing. My heart was racing so hard it felt like it might split my chest open. My legs carried me to the bathroom door without thinking. I stopped short of knocking. She was singing softly behind it, water running. Oblivious. Carefree. I didn't go in. I couldn't. I walked back to the living room and sat on the edge of the couch, staring at her phone like it was a bomb that had already gone off. The messages were still open. His last text sat unread. Next time, bring that dress. I'm not done with it yet. I swallowed hard, bile rising in my throat. My chest was tight, hot. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to breathe. She came out a few minutes later wrapped in a towel drying her hair. She smiled when she saw me, then noticed the way I was sitting. You okay? She asked. I looked up slowly. Yeah. Just tired. She came over and kissed my forehead, then went into the bedroom. I watched her disappear again and felt nothing. Or maybe I felt everything all at once. Like my insides had cracked open and I was leaking from places I didn't know could break. I could have confronted her then. Could have held up the phone and asked her what Brandon meant, what hotel she liked better on Thursdays, why I was sleeping next to someone who had already moved on in her mind. But I didn't. I didn't say a word. Because in that moment I realized something that chilled me deeper than the betrayal itself. She wasn't going to tell me. Not now. Not ever. She would have kept lying. Would have planned a wedding with me while texting him from our honeymoon suite. It wasn't a mistake. It was a system. A double life. And I had been the placeholder. I slept on the couch that night. Told her I was up late working and didn't want to disturb her. She didn't push. She said okay too quickly. The next morning, she made coffee, packed her bag, and kissed me goodbye. She told me she loved me. I didn't say it back. As soon as the door closed, I picked up her phone again and sent one text to Brandon from her device. Don't text me for a while. I didn't delete the thread. I didn't touch the photos. I wanted it all to sit there like a quiet landmine. Let her think I still hadn't seen it. Let her wonder. She messaged me around lunch with a selfie and a caption, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Let's do something cozy." I stared at it for a long time, wondering how someone could be so two-faced. So hollow. Or maybe she wasn't hollow at all. Maybe she just compartmentalized. Maybe I lived in one box and he lived in another and she moved between them like it was normal. I spent that afternoon collecting things she'd left behind at my place. Her earrings on the nightstand. Her charger. Her face cream. Her scarf. Her mug. I placed everything in a small bag and left it by the door. That night, when she returned, she was wearing another new outfit. Hair straightened. Eyes lined. She walked in with a takeout bag and said, "Movie night." I smiled tightly. We sat down, food between us, the movie playing in the background. I didn't touch my food. I didn't touch her. When she leaned into me, I let her. I let her act out the scene she'd written in her head. And I memorized every second of it. Every movement. Every lie disguised as affection. Not because I wanted to remember, but because I needed to understand what kind of person could look me in the eye after spending the weekend in someone else's arms. She fell asleep on the couch with her head on my shoulder. I stared at the ceiling and waited for the sun to come up. Morning light seeped through the window blinds like it had something to say. Haley was still asleep beside me, curled on the couch, one arm draped across my chest like we were still okay. Her breath was warm against my shoulder, soft and even. Peaceful, even. It almost fooled me. I stayed still, careful not to wake her. My eyes traced the ceiling. The apartment was so quiet it felt staged, like the pause before a curtain falls. The movie credits from the night before had long since stopped. The screen was dark, reflecting our faint outlines. Hers looked content. Mine didn't even look like me anymore. She shifted slightly in her sleep, letting out a little sigh. The same sound she made after we'd cooked dinner together. After she'd laugh at one of my bad impressions. After she said she wanted to grow old with me. The difference now? It was all pretend. I gently moved her arm, slid out from under her, and walked to the kitchen. My hands moved on autopilot, coffee, 2 mugs, one with almond milk, hers. I stopped halfway through pouring. Then set the mugs aside and just leaned against the counter. I couldn't keep doing this. The person in the texts, the one who joked about me being sweet but clueless, that wasn't some exaggerated version of Haley. That was her. That was the version she showed someone else when she thought I'd never know. That was her when I wasn't in the room. And maybe that was the real one. The mask had slipped. I couldn't unsee it. She woke up about 20 minutes later. I could hear her moving, stretching, yawning, pulling the throw blanket around her. Morning, she called, voice still groggy. Why didn't you wake me? I didn't respond at first. When she walked into the kitchen, she smiled. Coffee? I gestured toward the untouched mugs. Didn't finish it. She came closer, touched my back lightly. You okay? Yeah, I said. Didn't sleep much. She kissed my cheek and reached for the mug. I'll fix it. Go sit. I'll bring it over. I watched her for a moment as she stirred the milk in. Like nothing had changed. Like she wasn't carrying a secret that had gutted the future we were building. That's what got to me most. Not the cheating. Not even the lies. It was the effortlessness of her performance. The way she could step back into our life without flinching. We sat and talked about our weekend plans. She mentioned maybe doing brunch with her sister, maybe checking out a new art gallery. I nodded along, said I might go hiking. Neither of us brought up the reunion. She didn't ask why I'd been quiet. She didn't notice that I didn't touch my coffee. She didn't notice that I wasn't really there. Later, she gathered her things to head to work. Same routine. She moved around the apartment like she always did, like she belonged here. Like she still had a place in my life. But I already knew. This was her last morning here. I followed her to the door like I always did. Part of our little ritual. She always made a point to kiss me, to say, I'll text you later, and I'd say, be safe. Some days I meant it. Some days I just said it because that's what we do when we're trying to hold things together. Today I said nothing. She kissed me anyway, paused, then tilted her head a little. You're quiet today, she said. I just looked at her. Not cold. Not angry. Just done. Her smile faltered. You good? Yeah, I said. Just tired. She nodded slowly. I could see it, something in her registering that something had shifted. She opened her mouth to say something else, maybe ask again, maybe press, but then she didn't. She turned, stepped out, and gave one last half-wave. And then she left. I didn't say goodbye. As the door closed, something final clicked into place. I locked it behind her. And I stood there for a long time, hand on the knob, forehead resting against the doorframe. My breathing was slow and steady, but inside there was a strange silence. Like I'd reached the end of a long hallway and opened a door only to find nothing behind it. No rage. No tears. Just stillness. Then the messages started. The first one came 10 minutes after she left. Hey, forgot to ask if you wanted me to grab groceries on the way back? I didn't answer. 15 minutes later. Everything okay? You seemed off. Still nothing. Then came a selfie in the car, her caption trying to be light. Smile for me, babe. I put my phone on silent. By the afternoon, she was sending voice notes. One of them was just her saying she missed me. One was her laughing about some coworker's dumb joke. Another was a soft, call me when you get a sec. I didn't. By evening, the tone shifted. Nick. Seriously. Talk to me. What's going on? Did I do something wrong? This isn't funny. Just text me. Please. I left them on read. Around 9 p.m. she came back. Knocked once. Then again. She still had a key, but she didn't use it. Maybe she knew. Maybe she felt the wall going up. Nick, she called through the door. Can we just talk? Please. I didn't move. She stayed out there for maybe 10 minutes. Said my name a few more times. Eventually, I heard her walk away. She left a note stuck to the door, folded and simple. Whatever's happening, please don't shut me out. I love you. I didn't touch it. I left it there. The next morning, I found her mug still sitting in the sink. The one with the tiny chip on the handle. She always said she liked it best because it felt like a real person's mug. I washed it and placed it in a box with the rest of her things. Throughout the day, the texts kept coming. They went from polite to frantic. Then from hopeful to desperate. Then to silence. I didn't block her. I didn't respond. I let the weight of what she'd done speak louder than anything I could say. This wasn't a conversation anymore. This was a door. And I had closed it. That night, I turned off the lights in the apartment and sat alone on the floor of the living room, surrounded by quiet. The kind that doesn't echo. The kind that feels earned. I thought about the version of our life that I used to imagine, married, kids someday, late-night takeout while folding laundry. I thought about how I used to look at her like she was home. And I realized that home had moved. I didn't know where it was yet, but I knew it wasn't here. And it sure as hell wasn't with her. She had built a second life without me. Now I had to build one without her. The first few days without her felt quieter than I expected. Not peaceful. Just empty. The kind of silence that didn't soothe, it just made the sounds of memory louder. Every room still smelled faintly of her. Her shampoo lingered in my pillowcase. The hoodie she'd worn hung on the back of the kitchen chair. I didn't move it. Not yet. I wasn't holding on. I just wasn't ready to erase everything all at once. Truth is, even betrayal doesn't sever clean. It frays. It lingers. You bleed a little before you stop. The messages didn't stop. By midweek, they had become relentless. She texted in bursts, like she was trying to catch my attention with quantity if quality wasn't doing the trick. Nick, please talk to me. You're scaring me. I don't understand what I did. Please just tell me. She started leaving voicemails too. Her voice, normally confident, steady, was now thin, pleading. One message was just breathing for a few seconds before she finally said, I miss you. I miss everything. Then came the notes. Folded ones left at my door like we were in high school again. They started out short and controlled. Can we please talk? Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Then longer. Ink smudged in places. Tear stains, maybe? I don't know what's happening. You're shutting me out and I'm trying, Nick. I'm trying so hard. If I've hurt you somehow, tell me. Don't just disappear. I'm losing my mind not knowing what I've done. What she'd done. That was the part she couldn't bring herself to say. I didn't answer. Not a word. Not even a breath behind a door. The silence was on purpose now. A line in the sand. Because whatever came next wasn't about anger anymore. It wasn't about heartbreak. It was about dignity. Mine. The more she reached out, the more I saw her panic, not remorse. There's a difference. Remorse is quiet. Humble. It's an apology without expectation. Panic is loud. Desperate. It's someone scrambling to control what they've already destroyed. She came by almost every day. I watched from the window sometimes, standing just out of view. Her knocking softened after the first few visits. It became tentative. Like even she wasn't sure anymore if she deserved to be let in. Sometimes she stayed for a while. Just sat on the steps outside my building. One time she brought her laptop and worked there for 2 hours. Another time she left behind a Polaroid of us. Taped it to my door. Us on a Ferris wheel, grinning like idiots, wind in her hair. I didn't take it down. But I didn't bring it inside either. I let her see her reflection in the wreckage. I wasn't going to shield her from that. And still, she kept trying. Thursday afternoon, she called 3 times in a row. I muted them all. A minute later, another text buzzed through. I'm begging you, Nick. Just say something. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Please. Please just tell me what's going on. And that's when I realized she still didn't know I'd seen the messages. She didn't know what I knew. All she knew was that I'd gone quiet, and that terrified her. She'd been caught, but not confronted. There was no script for that. No fake crying or clever excuse rehearsed in the mirror. Just silence. The worst mirror of all. She was unraveling. Friday, she waited outside again. 4 hours. In the cold. I left for groceries just before dusk, and there she was, sitting on the steps, bundled in that same beige coat she once wore when she had nothing underneath. We locked eyes for the first time in nearly a week. She stood quickly. Nick, she breathed. I walked past her without a word. Please, please just talk to me. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Her hand hovered midair, fingers trembling. Can we go inside? Just for a second. I looked at her. Really looked. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes red, hair pulled into a messy bun like she hadn't bothered to style it. Or maybe she was trying to look vulnerable. Hard to tell with her anymore. I shook my head once. No. Her lips parted. Whatever she was about to say dissolved before it reached the air. Her shoulders sank like she had no more scaffolding to lean on. I turned and walked away. She didn't follow. That night, she sent one message. I don't know what to do. You're breaking my heart. The irony almost made me laugh. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and created a folder called Evidence. Inside, I dropped *TS of every message from Brandon. Every photo. Every hotel address. Every date. Not because I wanted revenge. Because one day she might tell people I just left out of nowhere. that I abandoned her, that I was cruel. I needed to remember the truth. The next morning she showed up again. Same knocking. Same pause. Then, I know you're in there. I was. I stayed seated on the floor in my bedroom, listening, watching the sunlight spill across the carpet like it belonged to a life I hadn't ruined. She knocked again. Then again. Harder this time. Nick. Please. I'm sorry if I hurt you. Just tell me what this is. Still I said nothing. She eventually stopped. The knocking faded. The footsteps retreated. And then, quiet. Hours later, she sent a different kind of message. Do you hate me? I stared at it for a while. It was the first honest question she'd asked. Still, I didn't answer. Because no, I didn't hate her. I didn't feel much of anything anymore. Just distance. Just space growing wider between what we had and what I could now see it had become. Later that night, I found myself scrolling through old photos. Not the romantic ones. Just candid stuff. Haley helping me set up IKEA furniture. Her laughing with her hair falling in her face. The way she used to lean her head on my shoulder during movies. Real moments. Or ones that felt real. And yet I couldn't connect them to the person who had written. He's sweet but blind. I thought about writing back. Not to argue. Just to say, you didn't break me. You just broke the version of me that trusted you. But I didn't. Because it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. The door had closed. My silence had become a language she didn't speak. And I wasn't translating. Let her wonder. Let her sit in the discomfort. That was the only kind of truth she'd ever understand now. And I was finally done holding her hand through it. It took weeks before I finally agreed to see her. We met at a neutral place, a quiet park we used to visit in better times. She looked tired. Not sad, not broken, just worn down. I didn't hug her. I didn't even sit too close. She started talking immediately. About confusion. About pressure. About not knowing who she was anymore. She said Brandon didn't mean anything. That it was stupid. Impulsive. That she was emotionally lost. I let her talk. Then I asked, would you have told me if I hadn't found out? She didn't answer. She opened her mouth, hesitated, then looked down at her hands. That silence said everything. She never planned to confess. After that day, we never spoke again. Not really. She messaged a few more times, birthday wishes, hope you're okay, quiet attempts to revive something that no longer existed. I didn't block her. I just didn't respond. Some nights, I'd still catch a scent that reminded me of her. Hear a song. See a photo I forgot to delete. Love doesn't vanish on command. It erodes. And I let it. I moved on differently. Cautiously.